It's been 25 years since the movie Scream was released and became an instant hit with critics and audiences around the world. Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson's knowing slasher spawned 3 sequels and set a young, hip and scary trend that immediately changed the landscape of cinema. Now with a new installment of the record-breaking saga on the way in 2022, this podcast will celebrate the original release and what came next, maybe with a few twists and turns along the way. I'm Alex James and this is the Woodsboro Podcast.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, Cynthia. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it's probably very early where you are, right?
Not too early, no. It's 11.
Cynthia Bergstrom is in sunny San Francisco. I'm in Manchester, where it's not too sunny. Fortunately, Cynthia herself is sunny enough to brighten the day. She's well known for her stint as costume designer on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and we'll chat about that a bit further down the line. But of course, we start with Scream. If you missed the last episode of the Woodsboro Podcast, with Mark Irwin, by the way, go back and listen. I mentioned my chat with Mark to Cynthia.
Oh, now that's interesting you spoke to Mark Irwin. He was the nicest man, and he actually helped with the ghost face fabric.
But we'll get to that later, all right? At this point, I'm armed with pictures of all the Scream characters, ready to get the lowdown on each costume that they're wearing in those particular shots and scenes. But first, we kick off with Cynthia, who at the start of 1996 was living in Nashville.
I think it was around the end of January, the end of February, and I had known Stuart, the producer, and met Wes and Marianne a couple of times, and they had interviewed me for another project, but it didn't work out. So anyway, it was weird. It was because I had pretty much left my career as a costume designer at that time, and was working as a stylist in Nashville, and I got a call from Stuart about this project, and at the time it was called Scary Movie. And he goes, I think you're really going to like it. And we're going to shoot in North Carolina, and you're in Nashville. So it's not too far. And we're thinking of getting Drew Barrymore to play one of the characters. And you've worked with Drew before, because I had. And he sent me the script. And I said, I just don't think it's going to work out. I mean, this is too... I just don't want to put this shit out into the world, you know. It's too gory, it's too horrific. I am going skiing. It's my birthday and I'm going skiing with a bunch of friends. So he's like, well, look at this, go skiing and look at the script and call me when you get back. And I was like, gosh, he's pushy. So I didn't read it again. And I went on the ski trip and got pushed down the mountain and broke my leg. And had to have surgery. Yeah, torn ACL. And my knee was the bone, the tibula. It was anyway.
Funny.
So I'm laying in bed after surgery, and Stuart calls, and he's like, "We've got some changes. Are you interested?" I'm like, "No." And he goes, "Well, we're going to shoot in a small Northern California town called Santa Rosa." And I was like, "I grew up in Santa Rosa."
No way.
And so he said, well, we'd love to interview you for the project. And I said, well, I kind of had a little accident. And he goes, can you fly? I said, fly me first class and I'll come out. So he did. I met with all of them, and it just Wes and I sat in this meeting for a really long time and just vibed. Like, all the ideas I had were his ideas, and we just vibed off each other, and that was that. And I got the job. So I went home, I packed a suitcase and flew back out first class.
So what how far ahead of beginning production are you at that point? Is that quite
Oh
soon?
gosh. I probably had 6 to 8 weeks prep.
And how is that comparable with an average?
Average, depending. Like, it's period piece and more people, I'm probably going to have more prep time. But like for a TV show, I basically have 8 days prep while I'm shooting and while I'm wrapping.
Yeah.
So TV kind of lays the groundwork for us to be able to do anything in life, not just production. So yeah, about 6 to 8 weeks. And yeah, I mean, I had to come up with Ghostface, who wasn't called Ghostface then. I remember we were all trying to figure out the mask, design the mask. I mean, Howard and his team were designing it from scratch. We had the prop guy scouring every prop house and toy shop. And I was sitting with sketches, trying to sketch it out and looking back to like in history. And I just remember one day they found the mask, which I thought was brilliant because that was how I was basing the costume. What was kind of the Scream, Edvard Munch's Scream painting.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which was interesting because then we call the movie Scream. And it was funny because the painting, you know, the Ghostface creature is in black, and I'd always seen the robe as black, but Wes wanted it white. and he wanted it to be like ripstop fabric, like Mylar. I was like, that's really going to be messy, you know, with blood. And I mean, can you imagine how gory that would have been? So I guess, you know, from his point of view, he thought it was going to be really, really cool. But so I made a prototype, and I don't recall if we had the mask yet or not. For some of the prototypes, probably not. And so I put a friend of mine in the prototype. He was about, I think my friend just happened to be there that day. He was like 6'3". And so we put him in the bushes around the lot where we were prepping and took photos. And we were like, this is just not going to work. This is like Casper the Friendly Ghost. There was nothing menacing about this. And that's what Wes loved, is that he wasn't menacing. But I kept showing him my sketch. And he was like, no, that's just not right. Until Mark Irwin found the fabric. Did he tell you that story?
No, he didn't. No.
I can't believe he didn't tell you that. Well, I hope it was Mark Irwin. So one day, my assistant, for some reason, I couldn't go on the location scout. And so my assistant went. And they were in this town called Hillsburg, which is north of Santa Rosa, all in Sonoma County. And they saw this fabric store. And this is the story that I was told. And the sunlight was hitting this black fabric with metallic lurex thread, silver thread running through it. And the way that the light was hitting it, Mark thought that would be brilliant for the Ghostface costume. So he went to Wes and he was like, Wes, look at this fabric. And lo and behold, Ghostface. And my original design. So I was happy.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Do you just feel like there's a weight lifted off your shoulders at that point?
Yeah, because I think we had like a week until we were about to shoot the first scene with Drew and Ghostface.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was really like, man, we got to land this fast. And found this great tailor in San Francisco. And he usually makes suits. And so I go walking in with my team, and he was like, you want me to what? And the guy was brilliant. And now that I live here, I wish I could find him, because I remember going up to his house. I remember going to his shop in San Francisco, but to piece it all together, maybe I should just make that a day trip or something. He was so brilliant though, because like there were changes. The costume was morphing, and even as we were shooting, there were needs that had to be met, and we were discovering things that like I sold my costume, but I had one of them. Just the intricacy of how the mask was attached to the costume, and how the hood had like the stiffening fabric in it so it wouldn't move and it wouldn't show the shape of the person's head, and how the gloves could still look like a costume store costume in the sleeves, and the padding, so you couldn't tell what type of body, man, woman, size, was underneath, because so many of the different players wore the costume, and we wanted to keep it rather ambiguous.
Okay, at this point, it is time for picture number one. So it's Drew Barrymore as Casey, her one and only costume in the movie. If you want to see the pictures, by the way, that I'm showing to Cynthia to chat through, I'll post them online at the Woodsboro Pod.
Okay, so Casey, why am I all of a sudden blank on this? I talked about this costume so much, and apparently, like, I never knew anything about the whole cosplay generation. So Drew's character here, Casey Becker, apparently is a huge cosplay costume.
Yeah.
Along with Rose. But anyway, so we wanted, so everything needed to be timeless. Like, I really didn't want anything to be sort of dated back to the early 90s. I mean, to a certain extent, one can't help that because it was, what was the mid 90s? I think it was 96, 95.
Yeah.
And so Drew and I talked a lot about this costume. And Wes's input was just, you know, let me see blood. and you know, she's got to be warm and friendly and not like one of those bitchy popular girls. There just needed to be we wanted to fall in love with her. And he also said, you know, think about it, like this might be played 20 years down into the future. So let's just think about that. No pressure there. I mean, who really thought that people would still be talking about this 24 years later?
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
25. So I wanted natural fibers. Like, that was really important to me. And so her pants are 100% cotton. Her sweater, I think, is a linen cotton blend. I think the sweater was from J. Crew, and the pants were actually a British designer, Catherine Hamnett, which was really big in Los Angeles at the time. And I went with purple just because the pants are kind of lilac, because that's like sweet and lovely. And Drew and I both just love the way the sweater kind of just, I mean, obviously my sleeves, I like drapiness. We liked the way the sweater just sort of draped her body, and it just looked natural. And she was at home making popcorn, watching scary movies. It was perfect. And then it allowed for all the special effects and the stunts as well.
I like the fact that already at that point he was thinking, you know, in 20 years, this 25 years, this might still be a thing. And lo and behold.
He did. And, you know, keep in mind, he had such success with Nightmare on Elm Street. So he was already used to the probability that his movies might have lasting effect. So
Drew was heavily involved in all that creative process for the look.
She was, and the wig, you know, I remember I went to the wig makers with her and we crafted that style. And also, here's an interesting tidbit that I think is really interesting. So Drew was actually my first fitting for the film, and I don't know why, but we had it at Wes's house. And I mean, that's kind of unusual. You don't usually go to a director's house for a costume fitting. I don't know if Drew was going out of town. I don't know. I don't really remember what the timeline was. Mm-hmm. It might have been he wanted to see her in the costume in a kitchen, because his kitchen was somewhat similar to the kitchen where we shot.
Yeah.
But it was really fun. And, you know, because I had worked with Drew before, we were really excited to see each other. And Wes had put out like wine and hors d'oeuvres, and it was really charming. And I remember driving up to the house saying to my costume supervisor who was with me, Cindy Rosenthal, actually she was my assistant on this project. She was the costume supervisor on Buffy. But I said, Cindy, I don't think we're in the right place, because I imagine like this scary Tudor style Gothic house with gargoyles, and it was this really cool sort of Eckler style modern flat roof house. And it was like the entire living room was just walled of glass, and you could see all of Los Angeles from his pool. So it was fun. It was really fun.
The next costume to chat about is, of course, our final girl herself, Sydney. Maybe, and I'm putting this out there to Cynthia, maybe not as memorable in terms of the fashion as the other girls in the film.
Yeah, I don't think we get too much cosplay going on with her costume.
It would be an easy one to do.
Except for the second one here, the jean jacket and again, lilac. Actually, I think it's periwinkle blue, the t-shirt. I do get quite a few requests to authenticate these pieces. Like, I guess people are still buying the actual pieces from wardrobe. So with Sydney, it's like she's covering things up. And, you know, I really saw her as like, she's just a simple girl who has had a traumatic experience, her mother, and she has like the hot boyfriend, popular boyfriend, but she's not overt in any way. And it just, what I saw for her was like an arc. Like, she starts out sort of this shy, demure, pretty smart girl. And she's not sure what she wants to do with the boyfriend. She's not sure what she wants to do in life. She's just sort of like on autopilot. And there's shame. So hence some of the baggy clothing. And then by the time we get to the party, she's more alive, and she's decided that it's time. And she's also our heroine. I mean, this is pre-Buffy, but it's pretty Buffy. But yeah, so I just wanted to show her off a bit more. Show her figure, show her power, show her strength, show her badassness.
The kind of one thing that follows her through all 4 films so far, and from what we've seen of the 5th one, it's always a jacket. It's always a different kind of jacket that defines her.
Well, you know, a jacket keeps you warm at night, and a jacket will hide stunt pads, anything stunt-wise. So jackets are a costumer's friend.
Okay, it's iconic time. It's Gale Weathers. It's the red suit.
Like if you notice her colors, they're the palette really matches that Scream painting. The lime, the orange, the red, the gold. I mean, that was really my palette for her. And I did want it bright and overt and like completely the opposite of Sydney. But this is a woman who wants to be seen, who wants to be heard. I mean, she's so funny. This character is so funny and whip smart. So yeah, it was really fun shopping for her. Yeah. And again, and we talked about the hair, and she wanted to have, now you call it highlighting, but back then it was frosting. So she wanted to make sure that her hair was frosted, like a Los Angeles news caster who was on air at the time. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with 5. I mean, I love seeing what other designers are doing, just their interpretation. It's fun to watch.
And our final costume to chat through is Tatum and what she's wearing at the final party.
So, this is probably one of my favorite costumes. Again, it's going back to the Scream painting. She was really a sweet character. She was a little brash and, I mean, again, completely opposite from Sydney, but not quite Gale. And just, I don't know, I saw that skirt and I thought it was perfect. And Rose actually brought in the little white boots. I think they were Doc Martens, I'm not sure. I think at that time, even though I was going for timeless, I felt this was timeless, but I think at that time, short sleeve turtleneck tops, which is kind of like an oxymoron, were popular at the time. It was really hard watching her death scene. I have to say, every time I see her in the garage, it was sad. We were all kind of like, even though it was a mannequin, it wasn't really her. We didn't really crack her neck. It was sad to watch.
What are your overriding memories from the shoot?
It was probably the highlight of my career. I mean, it was a great experience. And I ended up working with Nev years later when I was designing the TV show Medium. She did some guest starring on that, and as well as David came in and was a guest director. So it was interesting to work with them all the years later. But, you know, during the shooting, the filming, there was such camaraderie on the set. And everybody really enjoyed the process. It was hard. it was hard. You know, I didn't do the night shoots. I would be prepping while they were shooting at night, but I'd wake up I'd go in the morning to my car to go to the office. And because we were on location, we were all at this one hotel. And I'd see my costumers just coming home covered in blood and just so exhausted and crying, like, I can't do this anymore. It was surreal. It was really surreal at times. But I think the overall product just shows that there was a lot of love that went into this project. There was a moment when we were watching dailies, and we knew. It was like, I wish I could tell you what scene we were watching, but the room got really quiet. And we just all knew that we had something here. And it was a really cool moment.
And how does that make you feel 25 years later? Especially when you're aware that people are still recreating these looks for conventions and cosplay.
You know, I'll be honest, because over the years it's never quieted down. And so when I was on different shows, maybe I was exhausted, I just couldn't quite understand why people wanted to still talk about Scream. I didn't really get it. And I'd be like, oh. And now, because I'm not costume designing anymore, unless that big, wonderful special project comes my way, as it did with Scream. But this movie means something to people. And people would write in and say, you know, this film changed my life. Your work changed my life. It set the direct, and people say the same thing about Buffy. Buffy, it changed the direction of my life and made it more positive and gave it more meaning. So when I started to read things like that, I was like, you know what? I am so grateful to be here. I am so grateful that, you know, if somebody requests an interview and they want to talk to me, or they want me to validate a costume, or blah, if they just want to talk, then I'm there for them, because that's special, that's rich, and that's what life is really all about. So it makes me feel very proud and honored.
And would you be bold enough to say one of those looks from this is one of your defining looks, or do you hold that in your heart for something else?
I would say this was character play. You know, every look, I mean, they're all so defined. I'm watching Good Girls right now it's on Netflix and Hulu or NBC or whatever. And Matthew Lillard is the husband on that show. And so I cannot look at Matthew Lillard, like, even though I've watched the first 3 seasons, I'm like, when is he going to say it? My mom is going to be so mad at me, or Houston, I think we have a problem here, or when's he going to dress like Scooby-Doo? So, like, I do look at the characters as, you know, I see some of the actors as defined by the wardrobe that I put them in. But I think, you know, I don't know, I'm really proud of my work on Buffy. I think that is sort of more defining than Scream, but what people associate with me is definitely Ghostface and Buffy. I've done other things.
Just a bit of reflection at this point. I'm finding it really interesting, having now chatted to Eric Klosterman, location manager, Mark Irwin, director of photography, and now Cynthia, about the embracing of Scream. Now, 25 years down the line, how they feel about it and where it places in their career. And there's a lot of fondness and a lot of love. There's nostalgia, of course there is, but it holds a special place in their hearts and in their careers.
It like I said, it's an honor, and it brings such joy to people. And who would have thought that, you know, 2 really scary projects, you know, a movie about kids murdering and then getting murdered would be so pivotal in the lives of so many. But it did something for people. And so I think there's an underlying substance and an underlying energy, and there's just something. And the writing, oh my God, I mean, I think Kevin is brilliant. I really think that the writing and also what the actors brought to it. And I think that each character, somebody, there's a person out there, that can relate to what each of the characters is experiencing and going through and who they are. I mean, it calls to the heart in a really odd way.
So many great insights with Cynthia. Especially love the story about Drew testing out the Casey costume in Wes's kitchen and the whole idea of Ghostface potentially being in a white robe, which would be weird and very inappropriate. It's pretty clear that Cynthia is a well-loved member of the Scream team within the fan community, and probably even more so with fans of Buffy. So with that in mind, I asked if we could chat again about her time on the show, and she was kind enough to say yes.
Things on Buffy, like we had a bear on set. I went to set and there's a bear, and I'm hanging out with the bear, and my assistant and I are like, do we need to costume it? Do we need wardrobe for it? Another time there was a wolf. I mean, you just don't get that usually in your everyday line of work.
So that's coming soon, and it's not an easy conversation, but here in 2021, elements of these movies and shows are now being seen in a different light.
I think sometimes maybe the product, being a part of the product gives you credence to bring forth the story. And the story is a horrific one. The bottom line that we can take from the movie and the show is that these were empowered women, young women, and then some got their necks broken in a garage door.
Part 2 of the Woodsboro podcast with Cynthia Bergstrom will be coming very soon, and you won't want to miss it. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Woodsboro podcast. Please rate and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And if you'd like to join the conversation, then you can find more on social media at the Woodsboro Pod. And you can find me on social media too at This Is Alex James.